we had to delay just a little bit. Sorry, I have a hot flash. So all you women who are, what do you call it? She calls it what is it?
Perimenopause.
Perimenopause. I don't use that word. I just say menopause. Oh, yeah. So that's where I'm at right now. So I just had a hot flash, but we're going to get started.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about temptation. And I learned a lot through studying this. Stuff that I knew, stuff that I've been told, but like we forget. And this one just really helped me out. So I want to start, before we get into temptation, I was listening to Priscilla Shirer today. And have you ever seen her? Have you ever gone to so I went to her, Beth Moore, and Kay Arthur. And Kay Arthur is...
I don't think I've ever heard of Kay Arthur.
Oh, Kay Arthur is, don't ever tell your husband no about having sex. Yeah. That was, and then we had an assignment to go home and bless our husbands when we got done. And it was crazy. David's like, I will pay any ticket price for you to go see Kay Arthur. But she's great. She's a good, strong, deep woman of the word. And you have to really, like, a lot of it was over my head. But so Priscilla Shirer is somebody that I was watching, and you know, a lot of times when we talk about Revelation, we talk about it just being the end of the world, Armageddon, you know, the rapture of the church, and we kind of skip over those first 3 chapters of Revelation that is for the church. Mm-hmm. You know, it's for the church. And there was a church, it's Laodicea, and that is basically us. You know, like each church is meant for, I don't know, I've heard it be like a different timeline or a different time in period, and then I've just heard it being a different type of people. But for what I'm understanding is Laodicea is us churchy people. That's what we are.
And they were lukewarm,
mm-hmm.
right?
Lukewarm people. And so this was a warning. And so the story starts with John, and he is at the island of Patmos. He has been, he will not sit down from speaking about Jesus. And so they exile him to a island to where he is, it's prison, you know. They didn't want him to talk about Jesus anymore. They tried to boil him in some oil. I mean, you just couldn't kill the old man. He was 80 years old. And so they were like, we're just going to take you to an island and you're just going to live out your days. And so he was in the spirit, and Jesus appeared to him, and he said, I want you to write down everything that you hear and you see. And that's where we get the first 3 chapters of Revelation. And so how many times in your walk have you heard, I stand at the door and I knock, if anyone hears my voice? Mm-hmm. Okay. So and it is good. It's biblically correct the way that they use it, but that's not really how it was used. It was used to the church. And basically he's saying, I'm standing outside the door of my own church, knocking.
Yeah. And
I had never heard it. I always hear for new Christians, and Jesus does stand out at the door and he knocks. But it's this, in this instant, it is for the church. And you know,
can you imagine Jesus being outside your door, knocking, and you're not letting him in? And that's basically what we do when we reject him.
That's right. So today. I mean, my mama, when she was you know, raising her children, she'd always bake a pie in case somebody stopped by, some visitors, or, you know. And now, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, we tend to hide and be like, oh my gosh, who's ringing my doorbell, you know.
Turn the lights off.
Don't talk, don't do anything. And but she would bring, you know, because she loved, and I feel like we're more closed off and about us and self-centered.
Well, just think about your neighbors. I mean, you used to know who your neighbors are. Now
I do not know who my neighbors are across the street.
Like, I know, excuse me, the name of the neighbors to our right.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it.
Yep.
People used to take baked goods. And we
just don't do that anymore. And so anyway, back to he's writing these letters, and he's writing it to the comfortable, the casual Christian, basically the church today. I mean, there's some on fire, but we're mainly lukewarm.
It's kind of like the big picture of what the church looks like.
Yeah. So he says to those people, I stand at the door and I knock, and if anyone hears my voice and will open up the door, I will come in and I will feast with you and commune with you like you've never experienced it before. And that is the invitation for all of us. I mean, yes, we tend to think when we accept Jesus that that's the end. We're just to sit around here and twiddle our thumbs and wait on Jesus to come back. And that's just the beginning. And I think that pastors today really have failed at saying, okay, this is the beginning.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of your race. You're just now signing up at registration. On your mark and set, go.
Here's some instructions.
Yes. And I think I myself never really, I just thought, I'm saved, I'm good. I'm going to live out my life. And I was thinking as I was doing this temptation.
Mark it off, but
yeah. Thinking about like throughout my life, did I fall into temptation? Yes. Until 43, until the Lord pulled me out of addiction. I never tried to not sin, but I mean, like, if I sinned, I sinned. Because you hear everybody sins. Everybody did. And that is the truth. We're all tempted. We all sin. But he is explaining to his own people of being outside of the church, knocking on the door, waiting. And we hear it, and normally as an invitation to come to Christ, and that's used correctly. But when Jesus says he's talking to his church. So I'm standing outside of my own church and I'm talking to the people who have already put their faith in me. They're already followers. And I just have been praying like, Lord, help me to see if I am not opening the door. If you're knocking and I'm not listening, because we're busy. We have children in sports and our jobs. And, sometimes we just get so busy or we're so prideful. And so the one thing that you have to understand, and I wanted to point that out, is that when you accept Jesus, that's the beginning of your relationship. And we talk about here all the time sanctification and what that means. And that's something else that I wasn't really taught, or maybe I wasn't paying attention, that, okay, now that you're a new creation, you start laying down old habits. And I really didn't get that either.
Yeah.
I had to get in the Word and study it and understand that this is a process. And so I think a lot of times we overestimate ourselves and we think, we got it. We got this, and you just go through life and, you struggle with things and you sin, and you really don't fight off temptation. And that's what I have learned more with this, is that there's always a way out. Because God is not the one tempting you. It's always Satan. And the closer, and I'll be honest, here's another thing. Like, how many people in the church do you ever hear talk about temptation, their temptations, the things that they are tempted with? I don't hardly ever hear Sunday school teachers or deacons or...
One thing that I wanted to tell you is the Lord will test you to promote you, and the devil will tempt you to fail you.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's one of the things I listened to today and wanted to share with you.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Just a little bit. We've still got... It's on order. It's on order.
Yeah.
But I will say real quick, your ability to resist temptation is limited. So,
and you get fatigued.
You do.
Like, you get so tired of, like, and I know you've been feeling like this, like, you're just fighting it all the time. And so that's why I wanted to offer you that encouragement, is like, he's he might be testing you, putting you in situations to see how much faith you have in him and to promote you. So maybe there's something coming next.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that you've been wondering about, is like, we're doing all this stuff, but like, what's next?
What's next?
What should we be doing next?
Yeah. So, a lot of people don't even examine themselves, because we have to examine ourselves to see what we struggle with. So last night, my husband and I were eating Mexican, and I told him all the things that I struggle with. And it was a very open conversation. And I said, so tell me, when things get bad in your life, what are the things that Satan comes after you with? Because his things are different than my things. And he's like, So I could tell right there, he had never really examined himself. And of course, he was very open about it. Most men do struggle with porn. There are women who struggle with porn as well. And a little bit of kind of like mine, you have a bad day, you want to go pick up a drink, relax. And I'm not saying that's not okay for some people, but if you struggle with alcoholism, that is going to be the one. Like for me, I'm an addict. So if I dip into anything that I love, I can't get out of it. It takes me forever to crawl back out, where somebody else could just do it and not pick it up for 6 months.
Yeah, I remember a few summers ago, like I get these sparkling ice, fizzy type fruity drinks, and so I was drinking those, and then I was like, I bet vodka would be good in this.
Yeah.
And then it's summertime and around the pool, and the next thing you know, I'm like, gosh, I want one of those. And so I actually like had the thought, I've got to stop myself from like doing this more. Even when I smoked, I really wanted to quit, but it was a
run to when you've had a bad day.
A smoke break. That's when people went out on smoke breaks together, and they had smoking shelters and stuff like that. Or it was a car thing, or after I had like 2 cheeseburgers and a big Coke.
It would be good to smoke a cigarette,
It was like, sometimes it was comfort, and sometimes it was just out of habit. And I didn't even really like it.
And that's the thing about it. I smoked as well, and I missed the habit of. I was bored in the car.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything to do.
I'm like, if I quit, what am I going to do?
Yes. It is the craziest thing how we
present
it to ourselves.
And then you want to quit so bad that, like, quitting has to hurt. Not smoking. How am I trying to say this? Like, the want to quit smoking has to be more than the want to smoke. And so that's
and then you're thinking about it all the time, and then it's
And so one of the things that I had to do, and I don't read. I used to not read.
You used to not read. You read now.
I do read now. But I got the Left Behind series, and I was working third shift. And so on my breaks, instead of going out with everybody, I replaced it with something that I wanted to do. And it was a good habit. So I read the Left Behind series on my breaks.
And you really can make new brain waves to where, because it's a reward system. It's all about dopamine and all that stuff. And so like, it's like a treat.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing. Like if you've had a bad day, run and grab a drink and, I can be relaxed and have fun. But you know what? When you wake up tomorrow, that problem is still going to be there.
Yeah.
And you're probably sick and hungover with a headache and dehydrated. And it is just crazy what we get ourselves into.
Yeah. And so the risk of doing it, like
you've got health.
Yeah. And so I did go back to smoking, and after I had Kobe, and when I got pregnant, found out I was pregnant with Abby, it was a hard line.
Just put that on you.
Thank you. It was a hard stop. Like there, I couldn't do it. Like I was pregnant with her, and so you have to outweigh, like the risk has to outweigh, and so you've got to find things that mean more to you than what this stupid habit is, or the stupid habit that the devil has you stuck in.
So did you go back after you were pregnant?
No.
Yeah, that's good.
I think there was a couple times like I took a hit off of a cigarette or whatever after, but was like, okay, I can't do this.
Right,
like I don't want the feeling of not being able to dig myself back out.
Listen, let me tell you how bad addicted I was to prescription pain pills. I had my tubes tied, and I knew I had tried to quit so many times, and didn't want to take the pills, but could not get through detox because it was hell on earth. I even thought about going and getting my tubes untied to have a baby, because I knew that I would love my baby so much that I would quit. I was desperate. And then through the death of my dad is what the Lord, one of the most devastating things that I would have needed those pills for, he helped me to rely on him and lay that down. And, I don't struggle with those more than I do other things in my life. There's other things that I struggle with that's not as bad, that I would, I look at that's not as bad, but still I'm an addict. I had somebody the other day tell me to say, stop calling yourself an addict.
I'm going to tell you to stop it.
and I want to, but I have that addictive personality. I'm no longer an addict to prescription pain pills, but I have to watch everything because I have an addictive personality.
And I think it's okay to say addictive personality, but don't
call myself an addict.
Yeah, because
I'm not an addict. I'm an addictive
that's where
personality.
it's not anything near with what that is, but like speaking over myself, I couldn't do the public speaking thing and just having
the power. The tongue has the life and death. The power of life and death.
You're not allowed to do that anymore.
Right? No more. No more.
You're a child of the one true King.
I know. I'm the child of the Most High God. So, all right, go ahead. You start.
So she knew that I was going to watch Craig Groeschel today, so she didn't, and she listened to other people.
Please watch Craig Groeschel. He is so good. He's so down to earth. He makes it so much so you can understand it. This book is very intimidating because it is hard. But so what I do is whatever I'm dealing with. Like a lot of people can go into today I'm going to read Hebrews. I don't do that. This is a lifeline. So whatever I'm dealing with, I have a desire to learn about the prophets. For some reason, I haven't really been in the Old Testament a lot, but I usually try to deal with whatever I'm going through in my life. It's my lifeline. What does the Bible say about this? What does the Bible say about my sin? This was a good one for me. Yeah. It's like I'm just coming in on the tail end of a battle of temptation, and I conquered it.
Yeah.
And so, like, he always provides a way out.
In your face, devil.
Yeah. Now, listen, one time I said to the devil, you'll never get me with that. And before I could even say that, my feet were swung out from under me. I mean, because he goes after the ones who are walking closely with the king. Because the other people aren't making a difference. If you're silent, you're not talking, and you're not doing ministry, or you're not helping somebody...
sharing the Lord at work.
I mean, if you don't talk, if you just are living your life, what are you doing? He's not going to come after you. I wanted to tell you this. Sherry, her mom lives in Florida, and she has started making these little bags. She don't know really anybody, but she sets up this little table, and she hands out bags, and the people in her neighborhood and kids, 8-year-old kids, just come over and pick it up. Has like toothbrush and stuff, and Rhonda had shared not too long ago. Where you could donate, and so she put Denise's address, and you could send, because that's a lot out of Denise's on a fixed income, her mom, and so, but just drop it, seeing a need and being able to meet it, be in the hands and feet of Jesus, because that's what we're called to do. We're called to be the hands and feet of Jesus. So wherever there is a need, that's where we're supposed to be, and it might be in your neighborhood, it might be at your work.
Yeah.
So, all right.
One of the first things that he said when he opened up this sermon was like, we overestimate our ability to take on sin and conquer sin. And so, we think we're all right. And then fighting temptation off, we become spiritually fatigued. And so then the devil has just kind of hit you up against a wall so many times, you're just like, okay, like, you have no fight left.
No fight left.
And so he wanted to give us 3 ways or 3 key things to do to make sure you don't get into those positions with temptation. And so the first one was move the line, the second one's magnify the cost, and then plan the escape.
Is this the sermon with the yellow tape? I've heard that one before.
Yeah, and so it made a lot of sense. So he's like, draw a line with the tape, and that's your line, that's your boundary. But how many of us try to go as close to the line and get as close to the sin?
Over. I'm just going to go this far, but that's it. You get.
And so he says, make a line off the line and pad yourself. With more room, so you don't get to that
it's our pride
space,
because we think we got it. How many people? I got this. I got this. And you might have it the first time. It's like if somebody brings a cake to work and you're on a diet and you're like, I am not going to do it. And then you go to a bathroom break and you see that cake and you're like, maybe just a small bite. No, I'm not going to do it. Then you walk back down the hallway, you come back, and the next thing you know, you've got chocolate in your hair because you've ate the cake. Your willpower is only so far. So, and you have to understand the devil is coming for you.
And then the second one was magnify the cost. And so, like when, and we've kind of talked about this before, but ahead of time, like, you know what your hangups are. And so you need to be reflecting on those.
Wait a minute. Do you know what your hangups are?
Well, that's true.
That's the thing. That's self-evaluation. What do you run to? What do you do when the going gets tough, when life gets hard, when there's disappointment, when there's whatever? What do you run to?
Yeah.
That's what Satan uses for you.
Every time.
Every time. And then when you do lay that down, he'll find something else in you that he's going to come at you with until you lay that down.
Yeah.
And
so what he's talking about is like, understand, like, if I was to cheat on my husband after 25 years of marriage, like, what is the risk? Like, I'm going to lose, like, that marriage with that man that has stood with me through everything. I'm going to lose my integrity. I'm going to lose, like, how my kids look up to me and see me, because
you affect generations.
Yeah, and
I look at my grandkids and I'm thinking, generation after generation, you know, my kids, my grandkids, my behavior, the things that I do affect my grandchildren.
Yep. And people do not think that far ahead. And so it's like instant gratification and what do I want right now? And so people don't look at the risk and magnify that risk times whatever, because it's going to be worse than what you thought.
Your flesh wants what your flesh wants. Like, you are literally fighting against your own flesh.
And then when you cross that line, Numbers 32:23 says, you will be sinning against the Lord, and you may be sure that your sin will be found out. So anytime you think you're doing something in the dark, it will be brought to light. And think about, what's the worst possible thing that could happen, and magnify the cost. Pre-decide not to do that which could hurt you and others later. And so this is what we just talked about. The 5 minutes of sin, or even less than that, can wreck a lifetime and generations. So
it might feel good in the moment, but
it's not
the
worth
minute after, you're like, golly, why did I do that? Why did I do that? I mean, one drug for me can ruin it, because it takes me forever. Because I did do that. I did. In the very beginning, when I was trying to get off prescription pain pills, I went to marijuana. And then I was addicted to marijuana. And I can remember, you know, now marijuana's not, like, I never smoked the flower. It was always the weed pens that you can't smell. So I got away with that forever. But I looked at it like, oh, this is helping me get off pills, you know? And it did. It helped me. But then I got addicted to it. And I remember the Holy Spirit convicting me. Like, this is, I have a bigger, this was before I taught. So this was me just starting out. And so he had bigger plans for me.
Yeah.
But I had to lay that down first.
Yeah,
and that was you won't move.
That's one of the other things. Like, if you went back to that, like, that would hurt your witness. That would hurt our podcast.
Yes.
That would hurt your ministry.
Absolutely.
Like, it's a risk.
It's a risk.
You got to look at that.
That's not worth somebody else's. Like, the Lord will get somebody else to use it, but I want to be the one to teach and to bring people to Jesus. I mean, I want to do that. That's what I've been called to do. But I can remember I held that little pen in my hand, and I held it up to the Lord, and it was in the middle of the night, or it was like
out in the field.
Out in the field, and I'd be like, Lord, if you want me off this, you're going to have to take it away, because I can't. And he did.
Yeah.
And that's what 1 Corinthians 10:13 says. I'm not only going through menopause, I'm blind too. So, no temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man, which means we all go through temptation. There, even your preacher, even your Sunday school teacher, even the most Christian person in your church is tempted. People just don't choose to talk about it.
Yep.
So it's common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way of escape, that you may not, or that you may be able to endure it. So if you don't take the way of escape, he provided it for you.
Yeah.
You know, you have to find the way of escape, and you have to be the one to make that decision to take it. I know it sounds like I can remember being so overwhelmed in my sin that I thought, I'll never get out of this. I'll never do this. And I can
that's what
remember,
Satan thinks. Wants you to think.
and that is not the truth, because this is what the Word of God says.
Yeah.
So, and you have to, it says if you resist the devil, he will flee. Now, does that mean if you just resist him one time? No, I just went through a 2-month period of resisting the devil. And I'm like, I'm resisting you. Why are you not leaving me alone? And he's left me alone.
Yeah.
For now. But he'll come back.
Yeah.
He'll come back.
And I'm so proud of you.
I am proud of myself. I am. I mean, I feel like with my story, I feel like it's everybody else's story too. Like, if people say they're not tempted, or they're not struggling with sin, or they're not evaluating themselves, they're blinded by this. We are called to lay down our sin. And not all of them. I mean, you're always going to have those things. But the things that rule your life, the things that, that you struggle with.
Think about, he was talking about Joseph in the sermon. And he was like, think about all of the things that Joseph could have held against God for letting it happen to him. And how people play the victim and has the victim mentality quite a bit in the world today. And so, he could have blamed God for his brothers selling him into slavery, and used all those disappointments to fuel justification for the sin, in his life. And so, but Joseph didn't do that. And so,
I mean, Jesus was tempted.
Yeah.
That's the thing about it. And that's why, like in Hebrews 4, says, for we do not have it's Hebrews 4:15. It says, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. So I can remember running out because I would tell on people when I would talk to the Lord. I'd be like, did you hear what my brother said, or did you hear what my friend said, or whatever? And he would be like, well, my brother didn't believe. My brother's a pastor. Okay. So, I've always kind of like been, and he's a great man of God. And so, but, he was called, and I kind of wasn't, I'm not the black sheep, but I was just Christy, not anybody that was ever going to teach about Jesus. And so when I started doing this, I had just came out of this addiction and made a couple of bad other choices. And so on the outside, people just saw what my sin was. And so like when I started becoming a Jesus freak, they were like, whatever, like most people would get on a high and then they fall off or whatever. But I can remember running out to the Lord and saying, he said I'm not going to be able to teach anybody about Jesus or whatever. And he would be like, my brother didn't believe me either. I'm like, Lord, that's not what I want to hear right now. But everything that I would bring to him, he had already been through, and he sympathized. Mm-hmm. So that was another good thing. I feel like I'm telling my whole story.
That's good.
I mean, it's been temptation, win, fail. And if you fail, get back up. Mm-hmm. If you fall down 7, get back up 8.
Yep, for sure. Plan your escape. Even Joseph had an escape plan, even with Potiphar's wife. Like, he had known that.
He ran.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes
ran
you
out of
gotta
there.
run.
I'm leaving my coat.
Yeah, leaving it.
Yeah.
Not even coming back for it.
I mean, how easy would it have been for him to make the other decide the other way?
Yeah.
And
for a man, that's hard. Beautiful woman.
Yeah. Well, and then he talks about pre-deciding what your plan is. Mm-hmm. Pre-deciding, like if you get caught up or you're in the temptation and you're close to committing the sin, like before you even get there, like pre-decide what your plan is going to be.
Mm-hmm. There were many times when I could have not gone or not done anything or not.
I don't think people just set out to like screw up.
Mm-mm. I think it's just not understanding what the sanctification process is, because I fight differently now. I fight harder where I would have just given in, I mean, so
yeah,
what's the big deal? Everybody sins. That's everyone's excuse. I'll do better next month, or my dad died, so I get to have time to grieve. But no, he called me in the middle of that and was like, you're done. You are done.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me getting to that low point. And that's what he rescued me. It was a rescue mission. And it just, when I go back and I think about it, I'm thinking, I cannot believe that I'm here. I would have never been a public speaker. I would have never been brave enough to tell somebody that I was an addict of prescription pain pills and marijuana. Nothing.
Remember how much you would sweat when you first were talking about it?
I mean, we would both sweat. Remember when we're just in a little camera, we'd be like, oh gosh, we're so nervous.
And we get the nervous giggles.
Yeah. It's just amazing. And I remember Lisa, before she would write out anything, because I'm a writer, and so she would bring these pre-printed.
I would type it out. So I would have written it, and then I would have typed it out. Yeah.
And so now it's just like she's in the Word, and it's I don't know. Not that if you type your stuff out, it's not. But
well, and then I have a hard time reading.
It was very little. You didn't say a whole lot. You just kind of let everybody. And now it's just like you're leading a podcast by yourself.
That's your fault.
Yeah. No, the Lord has bigger plans for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are we at?
Being tempted is not evil either. It's not a sin to be tempted, and that's what you have to understand.
If there's a door that you're likely to go through, shut it.
Yeah.
Like, don't leave anything left unturned.
Yeah, that's why you have to know what the weapons, what those, how they say Satan comes with fiery darts? You got to know what your fiery dart is.
Yeah.
What's your fiery dart? Your fiery darts are different than my fiery darts.
And one of the examples he gave during the sermon was like, I never binged on something I didn't have in my house. Like, if I have the M&Ms, the chips, the salsa, this or that, like in the house, like it's right there, like, and I will binge on it. So I get rid of those and I don't do those things. And so if your thing is alcohol, get rid of it. Don't just put it in the trash can in your kitchen.
I feel sorry for people with alcohol addiction. Cause
pour it out.
You're not seeing people just openly pop pills or smoke weed. You know what I'm saying? But alcohol is everywhere.
Yeah.
Alcohol is everywhere. It's in a restaurant. It's in the gas stations. It's as you go home, you pass in 4 liquor stores or whatever.
Well, and it's, you go to, there's a restaurant in our town, and the one by Planet Fitness.
Oh, yeah.
And it used to be Applebee's in our town. Like, you just go there to have dinner, and you see the same people sitting at the bar.
It's so sad.
Drowning themselves.
So sad. We have a couple of friends. And they're always there when we go. Mm-hmm. By the way, they got the best ribeye in town. I'm just going to say it. Woody's.
Oh, yeah.
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 So.
I've had it.
It's good. It's good. So anyway.
And she said the name of the restaurant.
Yeah, it is Woody's. I love Woody's. But you see the same people sitting at the bar. Same way at Applebee's. You see the same people sitting at the bar. And they're drowning their sorrows. And it's just,
but if you ask them if that's what they're doing, they're not going to.
If they've had a bad day at work, whatever. So that's the biggest thing, I think, with fighting temptation is the realization that you've got to find out what weapon Satan is using against you. And then, like you said, have a plan. Mm-hmm. If you struggle with alcohol, go a different way home. The Lord will give you a way out. So,
if you struggle with lust or flirting at work, or like he even mentioned, he was like, if that's what you're doing at work, you need to change jobs.
That's right.
Like,
and you're thinking, oh gosh, I'm a manager. Well, you know what?
And then he even gave the example on himself. He was like, I don't have access to put apps on my phone.
Yes, that's
I don't have.
Somebody has.
Everybody has access. Everybody has my passwords to my email, so it's accountability.
Mm-hmm. A lot of married couples will do that.
He doesn't meet with other women for church purposes without his wife. Mm-hmm. And so he.
Remember when we were telling Miss Carolyn about that? She thought that was so crazy because she's old school. She's older than we are. And I was telling her that, our pastor, he has the rule that if he is meeting with a woman, they kind of share an office. Like it's the receptionist and then Pastor Lee's office, and his door is never shut. If he's in there with a woman, then Casey is able to hear everything. And Miss Carolyn was like, well, I don't really like that. Like I could be his mom, but they don't realize that that's real situations. And of course, it's for his protection and it's out of respect for his wife.
Yeah.
I mean, I've known Pastor Lee since I was a little kid. Me and Aaron went to school together. but I still respect that because
Yeah. And don't take it personal, because I had
Yeah.
a previous preacher who did the same thing when I wanted to meet with him. He had me come to his house where his wife was at. And then I felt like, oh my gosh, have I done something wrong? Like,
yeah,
he's old enough to be my dad.
yeah.
Like, what in the world is going on here?
But it
But
literally
that
has
was
nothing to
just,
do with you.
yeah.
It has to do with his protection because he knows that Satan is coming for him. So um, and also another thing, a good point. I listened to David Jeremiah as well, and he said God sees the temptation from the beginning to the end. So he's not up there like biting his fingernails, like, is she going to do it? Is she going to make it? And so he's providing, like, he sees what Satan has a mind of his own.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that God is all knowing, but he sees what Satan is throwing your way. And so God's like, okay, well, here's the way out. He sees it all. And so that's another thing for me, assuring. I know that when I pray and ask the Lord to help me through whatever I'm going through, I know he's going to provide a way.
Well, and he knows that when you are praying to him about the temptation, whether you're being serious or you're actually just saying it to save face and you're leaving a door open. And so that's one of the things that you've got to get
I had somebody tell me that's the
accountable.
whole purpose of speaking or praying in tongues, and so the enemy doesn't find out. And I tried to pray in tongues. Like I said, my dog. I think I told this one time. I tried to pray in tongues because my pastor was like, "Just do it." But I couldn't get past the sounds that I was making out of my mouth. Because I've not grown up around anybody that spoke in tongues. So I just started saying all these things, and it was so crazy. So I'd start whispering it, and my dog comes over and smells my mouth. He's like, "What the heck are you doing?" But people say so. The enemy doesn't hear it, but for me, I know God is gonna handle it regardless. But I really have tried. I feel so dumb doing it.
Yeah.
I need somebody to give me an example.
I don't think that I don't know, girls. You don't try to do it, it just comes.
Your prayer language is different than speaking. Because
Okay.
your prayer language is different than the gift of tongues.
Okay.
So, everyone should have a prayer language. I don't know. I'm just not going to even discuss that. But
Okay.
Such a thing. But anyway, but I believe even if you, I just think that the Lord is all knowing and he's going to supply everything we need, regardless if we speak in tongues or we pray out loud or whatever.
Yeah. And the more you do for the Lord, the more the devil will come after you.
Yep. The closer that you walk with the King, the fiercer the fighting will be.
And then the thing is like, I think we both are competitive, so we don't want to be losers. We don't lose to the enemy. No.
If I do, I'm going to get right back up.
Yeah.
Dust my knees off.
So see it as competition.
You're in a race.
See it as finishing the race well. See it as defeating the enemy, because that's what we want to do.
I don't want to be limping over the finish line. I want to run full force over that finish line.
I don't want to feel like the devil has anything over me.
I might have like that gauze wrapped around my head and my arm in a sling and with a crutch. You know what I'm saying? Because I've been warned, but I'm going to walk across that finish line.
Proverbs 4:14 says, "Do not set foot on the path of the wicked or walk in the way of evildoers. Avoid it. Do not travel on it. Turn from it and go on your way." Don't leave the door open.
Yep, because he will get in.
Be alert. Be on guard. And that's what the Bible tells us to do.
Yes, I have one in Proverbs as well. Proverbs 16:18. Last night I put the book of Proverbs on and listened to it, and I stick my phone under my pillow. It's called Sleep with Proverbs. I think it's on YouTube. And it's called, I think it is Sleep with Proverbs. I'll have to look it up in just a minute when she's talking. But I stick it under my pillow right before I'm going to sleep. And I listened to it. So I put Proverbs on last night. There's so much wisdom because it's the book of wisdom. But there's so much wisdom in there. Like, what? That makes so much sense. But Proverbs 16:18 says, I should have had this marked. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. So if you think that you're not being tempted, if you think that you're good, you're full of pride. And that's Satan's favorite. He loves to make you think that you're good, that you have no struggles, that you have no way of. And another thing is that David Jeremiah was talking about. You pray before, like Psalms 23 says, "Lead us not into temptation." It's before you get there, because you know that He is coming for you. Matthew says, "Watch and pray that you won't fall into temptation." You just cannot wait until it needs to be, Lord, lead, don't let me fall into temptation. And if I am tempted, give me the strength and the way out. If you don't pray that, then usually you find yourself, I found myself rock bottom, because I didn't even know I was at rock bottom until I was at rock bottom. I didn't know I was there. I didn't know I had a problem. I had so much pride and just didn't want to admit that I had a struggle or anything like that. It's war. It's war. You're in a war with your flesh, and so you have to put on your full armor of God, and you can't be arrogant, because He will knock your feet out from underneath you. So you have to, the only way to get out of it is with prayer. What's your book say?
The pruning.
Ooh. Oh, gosh. I hate to be pruned.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Yeah. But it's actually for the betterment.
It is.
Without pruning, a plant will suffer. If old, dead, and decaying branches continue to steal life from the plant, it won't be able to receive the sunlight or nutrients it needs. The same is true for your spiritual growth. If you truly want to grow in your walk with Christ, you have to be pruned. When it comes to the spiritual life, pruning doesn't just involve a seasonal cutting back. It's a lifelong process. Yeah. This is what you've been going through, of being emptied and filled again. Every day when we come to the Word, the Holy Spirit trims out a fleshly desire and plants truth in their place. Every trial, every season of suffering, every discipline is necessary for our flourishing. Instead of grumbling against God's pruning shears, we can offer Him the dead and useless branches of our lives and trust Him to bring beauty from the brokenness. And she says, if I'm being honest, it's hard for me to accept God's pruning.
It is. It's hard. I think about, so right now, we're in a room outside of the daycare that I own. And outside of my building, there are 15 beautiful rose bushes that bloom, these bright fuchsia roses. They're gorgeous. They're cut down. Sometimes David wants to cut them too early. And I'm like, no, they're beautiful. And he's like, Christy, if you wait too long, And so the pruning, sometimes it's beautiful. It's you're pruning beautiful things. You're pruning yourself. You're for more growth. But the pruning is hard.
It is.
It is hard.
And so what exactly does God prune? He removes anything that causes our lives to be unfruitful, sin, distractions, and self-sufficiency. He also takes away anything that hinders our growth, and sometimes that even includes good things. When God removes something good from our lives, it's always for the sake of something better. When we learn to accept God's pruning shears, we'll be able to see Him at work in all of our life, and even the hard seasons. It's possible to know something in your mind without really believing it in your heart, and I find this to be true in my walk with God. I grew up in the church learning countless Bible verses and stories, but I didn't always believe them. Deep down, I believed that God is good with life when life is going well, but I didn't believe He's good when things fall apart, including me. I think that's part of what you were struggling with too. It was like, I'm doing all the things. Like I'm talking to you. I'm working on my relationship. I'm in the Word. I'm listening to sermons, but
I was expecting God to protect me from temptation, and temptation is not going to go away. You will go. Everybody was tempted in the Bible. Everyone. Look at David. He had an affair. He had a baby with another woman. And he was, and the Lord restored that. So if you have fallen, if you've had an affair, if you have been in rehab, if you are in a season right now of whatever you struggle with, there's a way out. Don't ever feel like you are stuck, because God has something bigger for you. He's just waiting on you to get on board. He's waiting. He's like, I'm waiting on you to say, okay, Lord, this I'm going to read. I'm going to pray. I'm going to do everything that you say. And sometimes you read and pray, and it's still it's always going to be a battle. You just have to understand. And I think that I can tell when good things are coming because you're tempted. Because he's always going to come at you because he does not want God to be able to give you the better things. He wants to knock you back down. He is here to steal, kill, and destroy everything in your life. And he will use anything in your life and everything in your life to keep you from getting to where what God has in place for you.
Yeah. Idols such as comfort, food, possessions, fame, pleasure, and
Comfort,
relationships all promise to yield the fruit of happiness and peace, but they produce dissatisfaction and unease.
Have you noticed, like in your life, when you're more aware of the Holy Spirit, when you are more aware of the Holy Spirit cleaning you up, he cleans up everything. He makes you get healthy. Mm-hmm. He does. He makes you go to the doctor. I mean, he does. He wants to clean it's not just your sin he wants to clean up. He wants you to be healthy. He wants to be you to be the best version of yourself.
He wants good things.
And I think a lot of times we focus on the future. Oh gosh, what's heaven going to be like, our eternal home. He's came to give us life of abundance here. That's what is so mind-blowing to me. So he wants you to live the best life that you can live, but you have to understand that there is an active enemy who is here to destroy you, and you'll have to deal with temptation and sin until Jesus comes for the church.
Yeah. As we abide, we are able to endure suffering with joy. Because we are only branches, we repeatedly feel our weakness and look to the Lord for strength and help. That means that absolutely anything in this life that leads you to depend on the strength and sufficiency of Christ is a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. So I challenge you that if you're listening to this, that you will find out what your fiery dart is. And until you find out what your fiery dart is, I mean, I know pretty much everybody in this room. I can tell you what Brittany's fiery dart is. I know a little bit of what Alicia's fiery dart is. I'm not sure what your fiery dart is. You haven't really expressed that. What's your fiery dart? Woo! That's hard when you have to put it out on the line. I just threw up all over these people, telling everything. What is your biggest fiery dart?
Laziness.
That's the hardest thing to ever admit that you are. I just told my husband that last night.
You're lazy?
I'm lazy. I am lazy. I have a tendency to be lazy. I have to pray against that. So proud of you. It took me forever to admit that I was lazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, after I leave here, I'll be in my sweats laying in my bed.
Yeah, and that's rest. You've worked all day. You know what I'm saying? But
then there's some dishes up there, and then my husband, he works a full-time job and then works a side job, and then he goes upstairs and does the dishes.
And next month, we're going back to biblical
okay,
life.
so let me justify that. If I tried to do the dishes, then he would go behind me and fix the dishes in the dishwasher. So I just don't.
Mine does the laundry, so I can't really complain. I was sick.
I mean, I clean the bathroom.
I have a housekeeper.
He doesn't ever have to do that.
We need to go back to biblical wife. We do. No, seriously, those are small little things. But laziness, that's a hard one to admit. I'm proud of you for that being. For you realizing that.
But I'm not as lazy as some people. And on that note, we're going to land the plane.
Yeah, we're going to land the plane because she's getting fleshy. She's getting a hot flash because we've talked about it. It's hard to talk about it. It's hard to talk about what your weakness is. But find out what your fiery dart is, and then start praying against that. Lord, help me to fight against laziness. Help me to fight against drug addiction. Help me to fight against self-harm. Help me to fight against spending
too much money problem.
Porn. I mean, we could go on for days, but that's what it is. You got to find out what your fiery dart is. You got to find out what the enemy uses against you. Don't ever go into a war or a battle and not know what the weapon is. So,
Use your Scootum.
What's a Scootum?
Oh, do you remember when we did? Well, it was one of our biggest podcasts, and so we each took like a piece of the armor of God. Yeah.
So what's a Scootum?
And so the shield, it wasn't like one of those little round shield. I looked into what like the actual shields that they used were.
And they were called a Scootum?
And then Scootum.
Oh, I thought you were talking about something else.
I even prayed that in the prayer over you last week and kind of giggled when I said
You said
it. You did? Yes.
I didn't catch it. Oh, my
But anyway, these shields were as big as doors.
Yes.
And so people would put those together and it would deter like the fiery darts.
Every day.
Yeah.
Scootum.
And then they had leather on them.
I remember you teaching
the
me.
wet leather, so it would put out the fiery dart. So there you
Use
go.
your Scootum.
Anyway.
We'll see you next week.